Okay, let's use the TI-84 to solve a rather complex fraction. This could be difficult because I have to find common denominators throughout the problem, and this is very long and laborious, but with the TI-84 it's very simple. Let's use the alpha F1 key and make a fraction. So I select option number 1, and I can put my 2 in here, and it looks like I need to make another fraction, so alpha F1, make my fraction, 2 plus, and it looks like I need to do it one more time. Here is 2/3. Now I have to be very careful with this 2 right here, because this 2 right here does not go in this position that I have it on my calculator. Rather, I have to click over to the right hand side and then add 2, so that now my display on my calculator looks like the problem. And then I can go ahead and press enter and get the correct answer of 16/19. I also wanted to illustrate another functionality. Let's take something like 69 divided by 15. Something kind of bizarre here. And you can see that I get a decimal. And that decimal may not appear on my answer sheet. It may appear as a fraction. So what I can do is use the math key and choose option 1, which is the fraction. And I can change that to an improper fraction. And that one may appear. But given some HCT tests, they may want a mixed number. So I can use that alpha F1 key where I visited before, and option 3 here would allow me to change that thing to an improper fraction, or excuse me, from an improper fraction to a mixed number with 4 3/5. Very functional, this alpha F1 key, changing to the fractions. Here's a particularly nasty radical. It isn't all that difficult to solve algebraically, but it does give us an opportunity to show you the functionality of the solver function. To access it, we go to Math, and I cursor up because it's faster getting there, and it's called Numeric Solver. Now what I want to do is I want to put in the left side of this equation and always set it equal to 0. You always set it equal to 0 so it can solve this. So in this case I have a radical to in the index is kind of bizarre, so I go Math and option 5 here so that I can go ahead and edit that index. This particular index looks like x squared minus 1, and then on the inside I have 64. Okay, so that's the hard part. Now I have to bring over the right side of the equation, so I'm going to subtract x raised to the x, and then I want to come down here and set the other side equal to 0. So all I've done is just move everything to one side of the equation, everything else to the other. Okay, when I get that, we go ahead and select OK. And what I want to do is clear out whatever x that I had in there if you've used this previously, and then I click F5, which is my solve key. And what it does here is give me the answer to this one, which appears to be H. Now this particular feature for solver is really slick for linear equations. It does have some issues with quadratics, so let me demonstrate that with a quadratic. Again, I want to go Math. I cursor up to get to my numeric here, and I'm just going to clear this out and put in some simple quadratic. Here is x squared minus 2x minus 15, and that's going to equal 0. So I'll go OK here. Now I know that this one has 2 solutions. In fact, I can tell you what they would be, but it has to do with the boundaries right here. And what it's going to do is find that first one. So if I click on Solve, I get the one that is 5. The other one is going to be -3. And I just know that from experience. But the limitation of this feature here just gives you 5. And you'd say, well, how would I get the other one? Well, it has to do with this bound right here. If you fix your boundary so that you can find that other one, if you've got an idea where that is, then it'll help you find that. The best way, though, I found for solving these quadratics is not to use this feature, but rather than go to the graphing feature and graph x squared minus 2x minus 15. And then when I graph that, okay, so there's what my graph looks like. And my solutions where it's equal to 0 would be right here at -3 and +5. And I can verify that by going to second table. And I can see whenever I get zeros here, when y is equal to 0, I get my value of x. So I get 5 there, and I get -3 here. And so they would be my solutions. That might be the slicker way of solving quadratics. Okay, here's another feature. We call this the test function. So here's one where we need to expand this binomial. Normally we would write it as x minus 3, or excuse me, 3x minus 4 times 3x minus 4 and use FOIL. But in this case, let's go ahead and attempt to expand this. This is one of the things that I see most often, is we have something like 9x. Let's try it again. I have 9x squared minus 16. I think it's some sort of a difference of squares. And what I could do is use this test function. So if I go second test and equals, and then I put it equal to the function that I have right here. So this is 3x minus 4, and then I'm going to just square this one. Now if this works, I should see a 1. If it doesn't work, then I should see a 0. And in this case I see a 0. That's because those two expressions are not equal. Let's try it again using the correct one. So here's my 3x minus 4, and we'll square that. And this time we're going to test it. Second test equals against the actual expansion. In this case it would be 9x squared minus 24x and then plus 16. And again, if this is correct, I should see a 1. If it's incorrect, then I see a 0. So this is correct. That means that I have expanded it correctly, and I can feel confident in my answer. One of the last features that I want to talk about here is one of the apps that's generally installed on a TI-84, or you can download from their site. If I go to the apps right here, I want to find the one called this Polynomial Simultaneous Solver 2. As I go down to this one, this has a wealth of information. This polynomial root finder is great because it not only finds the linear roots, but nth degree roots. So let's look at this one first. So you see right here that we can determine the order that we want to solve, and usually in the ACT you're looking at linear equations, which would be of degree 1, quadratics, maybe the occasional cubic, but you can see all of them are listed right here. We can also find real solutions or imaginary solutions depending on what mode we choose here. Really, really powerful. Let's go ahead and show you what this will do with a quadratic. We need to click on Next here, which is our F5 key. And I'm just going to put in something simple. So here's 1 minus 2x minus 15, something like this. And then what I want to do is to solve this one. Again, all these buttons down here at the bottom are governed by the function keys up here at the top. So to solve, I can press F5. Alternately, I could do alpha, enter. You'll notice that there's a solve down here by the enter key. Either one will work for me. So if I solve that one, there's my solutions. That was pretty slick to be able to go in and get those solutions. Now if they want you to factor, of course you understand that the factors come from x plus 3 and x minus 5. But still, this helps us get there very, very quickly with some of those things. Let's go back to the main here and demonstrate one last one. Here is a simultaneous equation solver. So what this will do is if I go in here, I can indicate how many equations I want to do. Now there are some of you that know how to do this with matrices, but if you have one here, you can put in your linear equations and the unknowns and go ahead and do this. Let's just make up one here. I'm just doing this on the fly. Let's do something like x. Let's see, I better put in 1x plus 1y equals 4 and 2x minus 6y equals -8. Okay, I'm just making that up. Okay. Oh, it's negative. I got to put this negation. There we go, -8. Okay, so there's my two equations, and what I'm doing is looking for that simultaneous solution of where they would cross. So if I go ahead and graph that, you can see that was pretty easy. I get the point 22. Now they also have a key down here at the bottom. You can see the F to D right here, so this will change it from the fraction to the decimal. So if you get some icky decimal that's in here, you can change that to a fraction so that you might get a better handle on your answers.